Today I will again visit Government House and resign as Premier and member for Mulgrave, effective 5 p.m. tomorrow.
He went quicker than the WA Premier. He had, I think, 3 or 4 days. He's just given 24 hours or maybe a little bit more. So for some reason, he needed to get out and get out fast. But he did his job, though. They're even sort of telling us now in the news that his job was to leave Victoria a broken state as much as he possibly could, like the rest of the country. But look, during COVID, there's no doubt Victorians got hammered more than anyone else. That was their main staging ground for the whole shit show. So there's no, it's broke. There, that paragraph I highlighted, then underneath, he goes, debt, taxes, healthcare system stuffed, the Commonwealth Games debacle, and of course there's no infrastructure. Nothing got spent on anything that helps reduction.
But when it's time, it's time.
Time for what? He's going to spend time with his wife and kids. He's going to play golf and read books. So that's what he's going to after, especially the last 3 years of reading scripts of lies that just brutalised Victorians and added to the misery of the whole of the country. Oh, yeah, I've had enough now. I'm just going to go and read books, play golf, spend time with the wife and kids. Now, the rest of the premiers and territory ministers, they all did their job. But as despicable as Palaszczuk, as that WA Premier, as Gladys Berejiklian were, somehow, and you couldn't work out how he did it, he was the most grotesque of all of them. Of course, it's got nothing to do with spending time with his family. It's all got to do with this inquiry that's coming up. That's going to be focusing on a national cabinet. But it's not going to be a royal commission. It's actually going to be a media show. And they've got like the show trial of Gen 6 over in the States, where they've got to broadcast something. It looks like it's people are being asked questions. But they've got to get rid of all of these people, especially the crucial ones, the premiers and chief ministers, before the inquiry kicks off. Now, Palaszczuk, she's the last one standing, but they had to get rid of him as a priority because, as I mentioned before, Victoria was the epicentre of COVID. Now, the key mechanism they used to impose COVID was this national cabinet. That's why they're not going to release any documentation or even, looks like, minutes of the meeting. They did do press conferences and such, but that's just what they're letting you know that they want you to know about, that not what they discussed. Now, I will think that the premiers will probably have to turn up, but if they're not in the role of premier anymore, they're not under any oath, anything like that. It's not a royal commission. They can't be compelled to answer. They can answer the questions that they like, but they're not going to be tailored. And it's just going to be, at the end of it, it's just going to be, nothing's going to be determined. It's just going to be an absolute load of nonsense. And it won't get to the key point that there was no justification for the COVID response, or I call it intervention, based on the threat that the virus would ever going to have. I mean, average age of 80 for death and cold and flu symptoms. It just wasn't what they said it was. And back in 2021, when people first started asking, hang on, you're not letting us know what's going on at these meetings, a FOI request put in, they reckon that the government says revealing secrets would damage relationships between the government, Commonwealth government, and the states and territories if the documents were put into the public domain. So set up in 2020, they even, like, full disclosure as far as getting our consent goes, not full disclosure of the info, of just what they're doing. They set it up in the wake of coronavirus. The National Cabinet, this cabinet of secrecy, was set up specifically for COVID. And it replaced COAG, which was the Council of Australian Governments that started in 1992. So COAG had to go because all the states and the Commonwealth had signed this National Health Reform Agreement, which has pesky and inconvenient clauses throughout, such as this one, making things publicly available. You can't have that when you're just spewing a whole load of bullshit that's not backed up by any evidence or documented evidence. Now, before National Cabinet, maybe just as looking like they're following the process of COAG, under COAG, they did have this national partnership on COVID-19 response. This was signed on the 13th of March. That was 5 days before the declaration of the emergency that suspended the Constitution. So I think they might be tied that they couldn't really get rid of COAG because it was so useful and fair income. While the Constitution, it would be unconstitutional to take apart something that had been running for, 30 years and replace it with something that you can't find out what's going on. As I said, they're following processes, but this also, I draw the conclusion, there's a real possibility that none of these hacks, the Prime Minister, these sort of low-level operatives in the overall system, I don't think they get given the whole plan too far in advance. I think they get given just enough information, and then they might get their scripts on the day. They don't even know what they're going to read in Parliament that day. Just comes across, here you go. Here's your duties for the day for the people that are running the show. So they've gone along and signed this, and then Morrison gets it. Oh, by the way, we're getting rid of all that. Now we're going to have national cabinet. So everything is plotted by foreigners, and Event 201, or this Jane Holton, looks like she was the intermediary between, Bill Gates and these other. They're pretty low level too, by the way. I don't think they're too high up. If you know their names, they're not too high up. They seem like they are. Oh, they're billionaires. Yeah, well, who's above them? And she was the go-between. She was on all of the committees. So at the National Cabinet, I think she went to a few of the meetings. Not 100% sure. I know she was at some committee meetings where they were all at. Maybe they didn't go. She didn't go to National Cabinet, but I seem to think she did. So you can't have the minutes of Jane Holton saying, "Right, Prime Minister, here's Morrison." Wouldn't even call him Prime Minister. Wouldn't give him any kind of status for her. She'd go, "Here's what you're doing now, Berejiklian. Come here. Come, get over here. Right, here's what you're doing." That's how she'd be speaking to him. I guarantee it. You could have the minutes of that tabled, made publicly available. And the implementation, the announcement is only made through these politicians. The implementation is through the senior public service. It's just infiltrated. All the top positions are all hell. You got Finkel. So Tom Rogers, Tom Skerritt, the TG, all these guys are all placed in those positions, and they'd have a coordinating group around them as well, and that's where they work it through to get to us. Now, there's a bit of interesting history on Jane Holton. Back in 2014, they tell Finance Department head Jane Holton to stop calling herself professor. There's confusion between her and actual professors. I don't know what the hell she is. And a young professor, which obviously means nothing. That's pretty much it for this one. So he's gone. The worst of the worst. Palaszczuk will go in the next couple of days or before this inquiry kicks off. Like I said, it was mixed emotions for you, Victorious. Gee, imagine not having to hear this guy anymore. Got to do something about making sure these guys are never forgotten. Greg Hunt, he disappeared quite a while ago now. As Murphy's now gone, you could not escape them if you turn the telly on or turn the radio on, and now they're nowhere to be seen now that their job is done. But yeah, these guys need to be remembered, so I have to work out some way of doing that. So I'll just play a bit more of Dan as a finale. All right, that's it.
9 years ago, I visited Government House to be sworn in as the 48th Premier of Victoria. I'm also proud to think of all that we have achieved, always working hard to do what's right.